Alright, so I got the old Maverick here, and it's not running so well. It acts like it's got some vacuum leaks, which I know it does. Trying to get the drivability and stuff right on it. As you can see, what I usually do on these is I just get rid of everything that I don't need. I think about if this engine was sitting on the floor, what would I need? I would need ignition, I would need the vacuum advance, you know, just certain little things that you don't even need the vacuum advance to make it run. But just try to simplify and think outside the box. If this engine was out of the car, how would I try to get this thing going? And just right off the bat, I found hoses that weren't connected to anything. They did put a new carburetor on it and everything, but it's just simple stuff. It takes time, and that's why I think a lot of folks don't do it. And with this car, I think they painted it, put some nice wheels on it, and sold it. But I mean, they put there's a adapter here. I'll get it right here. It's got the EGR on it, like I did on the other Blazer. Really, we could take the EGR off and make a plate, but the problem I'm running into is the bolts are just stuck. And I think I'm going to leave that the way it is, but they didn't use any gaskets on that. They just siliconed it and put it on there. Well, that's not going to work. So I'm going to make a couple gaskets that fit it, do that correctly. They've got some air tubes that go from the, I'll show it to you, from the exhaust manifold to that. It's a bunch of emission stuff, but the stuff is just breaking and falling apart and leaking. So I just removed that. I'm going to put a pipe plug in that, try to get that going. But one thing I found on these 6-cylinders, you know, your 144, 170, 170, 200, most of these Ford 6-cylinders. Now, the Chevys I haven't messed with too much, but just about every one I've messed with has a cracked and busted exhaust manifold. And sure enough, I don't know if you can see, right, it'd be hard for me to actually see, but I found it earlier, right there where my finger is. We got a giant crack that goes up through there. So, but the hardest thing is the intake manifold's made to the cylinder head on this thing. And it's really hard to get into there. And the last one I did on mine, I had to pull the cylinder head. It was on a 170. I had to heat and get all the bolts out of it. And luckily, I had another exhaust manifold off another 6-cylinder in a Falcon when I had my 60 Falcon. And but here's the thing that I've got with this. I don't have any of these extra parts, and that's kind of nobody really builds these 6-cylinders. Nobody really messes with them that much. So, I'm just going to try to do the best I can. I've got a few holes to plug on that exhaust manifold to try to get those leaks taken care of. But most of it is just getting rid of vacuum lines. Like, really, all I need is a vacuum advance. I need the modulator hose for the transmission to shift. You need your vacuum for your dash accessories to work. I mean, there's really not much to it that you really need. Like these little valves, I don't even know what that does, but it's not hooked up to anything. I'm going to remove that, throw it away. It's just trying to simplify what's already here and everything. So that's what we're working on. So the first thing I'm going to do is make those gaskets for the carburetor, block off some of those exhaust leaks, plug some things up, and then, because already just in what I did getting rid of the hoses and capping things off, as you can see, I use those little caps to kind of block everything off. But even things for like this here, like that doesn't go to anything. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't need to be there, But yeah, this is just a little phase right here, and I don't know how far, because the whole exhaust system needs to be redone, and then it's going to need some front end work. So I'm going to have to talk to the owners and see really what they want to do. And I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm getting shorter on time because I've got to get some of my projects done. And the main goal of this was just to get it running and driving. Try to make sure the front end's good enough, because they don't drive it very much. They're just going to take it to the, out for a cruise every once in a while. So I just got to do what I can with what we have here. So, but yeah, it's just simple stuff, man. I mean, it's not very hard. It just takes a little time. A can of carburetor cleaner is your friend on this job. All right. So here on Corey's garage, I'm on the second half of the Maverick. I should have been videoing while I was working on it, but we're getting ready to get in some cold weather, and I kind of got to get after what I'm doing here and get this done. But I'm going to go over something that I think people, especially on these Ford 6-cylinders, something that I've worked on these previously, I kind of forgot, but this has got the same issue. These exhaust manifolds on these cars, they're very, very prone to cracking and busting. And that's the issue with this one. Well, to remove the exhaust manifold, I'm gonna have to pull the cylinder head or pull the engine out, because I tried to get the bolts, I tried to heat them, they're all wanting to break off in the motor. So what I did, again, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I welded 3/4 of the crack on the manifold. Now we're still leaking in the front, I don't know if you can see, I cannot get the bolts out of it at all. Also, what was wrong is this carburetor, when they put it on there were so many vacuum ports for like the air injection pump that was on here. This motor had so many vacuum leaks. The carburetor, whoever put the carburetor on it, instead of using gaskets like I put on there, they just siliconed it. There was no gaskets at all. Now I've got to plug a few of these holes here, and I believe one of them will be more of a vent. But it was mainly just getting rid of vacuum hoses, vacuum lines, things that we didn't need anymore. The vacuum advance was not plugged up properly. I'd done the primary port on the vacuum advance, so we would get, you know, a little bit of advance. It was getting zero advance to it. Just first one thing, and two, plugging off things that don't need to be plugged. You know, it's the intake track on these engines, they're designed to draw a vacuum. The carburetor has to have a vacuum to work properly. This thing had so many air leaks that it couldn't draw air through the carburetor like it should have. So right now this thing runs perfectly. Like, it just runs great. I've drove it about probably, I took it on the loop. It's been sitting, I've let it run for an hour. I'm really at the best that I can do as far as running and driving. But yeah, to find an exhaust manifold, which I've done a little bit of research, I'm finding nothing for this car. It needs a new exhaust system on it. It really needs a new exhaust manifold. You could, if you pulled the head, got this one off, you could weld it up and try to make it work. But, you know, this thing has been on here forever. It could crack again in no time. So it's like, I don't know. The best thing, if you could find an exhaust header to put on it, would probably be the best bet. It's just getting it apart. And I don't know if the folks that own this car want to incur that kind of cost, because it could be a very time-consuming job on this. I've went over the front end. It all looks to have been replaced. I think it just needs an alignment. It could use a new set of shocks and springs. But the thing I'm working on now is this window would just fall out when you try to roll it down. So I've been working on it, and what I found is this window, as you can see, has been knocked out of this car before. So, but what they did, they got another window, but they didn't clean the track out here. Let me see if I can get that light back in there where you can see. Come on now. Anyways, they've knocked it out, but up inside here, in the track, there's still broken pieces of glass in the front window track. Well, I don't know if you can see or not. I've dug a bunch of it out. That's another thing too that's really frustrating about trying to be a car mechanic. You can have the best lights and you can never get them in the right spot. But the glass is still in the window track, so you try to roll it down and it'll just knock the window right back out of track. Well, to get the window back in the track, you have to completely take the regulator. You got to take the rear track. I still have that loose. The front track is completely disconnected. So I'm going to try to take and do my best. See, you can still see a piece of glass. See if I can just point that right there. That's going to knock the window back out of the track. So I've got to dig all of this back out. And why on earth anybody didn't, unless it was snowing, it was nasty, or somebody was ready to pick the car up, they were just trying to hurry up and get it out. This is really, I don't try to like make fun of other people's work, because you got to think about what's going on when they were doing it. But this is ridiculous. They didn't even vacuum the glass out of it. Like, that glass has been in there for, good God, I don't know. That's been in there a long time. So this is really unacceptable, and it's a waste of my time and the people who own the car now. It's just ridiculous. So that's what I'm working on now, trying to get this glass out of that track and try to get the window where it rolls up and down. But I'm pretty well to the end of what I'm going to be able to do with this car this winter, until they've tracked down some parts. But as of right now, you could drive this car anywhere. You just got a little bit of an exhaust leak to deal with. So, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, you cannot beat how good these little 6-cylinders run. It's just unfortunate that the exhaust manifold's cracked and busted, and it's kind of a hard part to find. So, but yeah, stay tuned, and I'll try to do a little drive along if I can get this back together. So thanks, guys. All right, so I finally got this door back together. I feel the problem was when somebody's knocked the window out of this thing before. They put a replacement window out of another car in it, but what they did is the broke pieces in this front track that go, I don't know if you can see right here, that go around the front of the window, still had broken glass in it. Well, what was happening is when the window would go down the track, that glass would push it out, twist it, and knock the window out of the track. So I had to completely take the door apart, take the regulator out, and just let it all fall down in there and clean that glass out of the track, which should have been done that way the first time when they put a window in it. Now, mind you, it could have been cold, it could have been snowing, they could have been whatever, they had to get it in, but still it wasn't right. And that's the kind of things that ruin the experience for people that buy these cars, because they're buying it to drive. These things are awesome. Some of the shoddy workmanship just ruins it, you know? And it's like the door panel's torn up, you know? I mean, just different things. You have to take your time, and that's where, like, I think a lot of people are getting these things and flipping them, and they just throw them together. And then I hate that, but and like this, it's wasting my time because I have to go back over it and completely take it apart. And if you've ever messed with any of these doors with the regulator, this is not my most favorite thing to do on these things. This can be a nightmare. So yeah, this is now it's rolling up and down just like it's supposed to do, staying in the track. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the regulator. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to get this button back up, put the air cleaner back on it. I think I'm pretty much done with this ride. So I think they should be pretty happy with it. I've done the best that I can do with what I've got to do with on here. So I might do a little ride and drive with it, but really, I don't think I really need to, you know. I think it just needs some gas and it needs to go down the road. You just need to drive it, but yeah, it needs a new exhaust manifold, needs a new exhaust system. I'd put 2 new front tires on and have an alignment done, and I'd have an excellent cruiser. So if you're looking to get a Ford little car like this, it's just some stuff to keep in mind, you know. On any of the Ford 6-cylinders, I would source an exhaust manifold or maybe an exhaust header for it. Just expect to have a busted manifold on them. It's just commonplace. So thanks, guys. Good morning. Well, we've come to our last video on the 73 Ford Maverick. Got it all up and running. Front end's in good shape. I've come to a conclusion that with talking with the owners and all that kind of stuff, that it needs a front end alignment, a couple new front tires. I'm just gonna basically send it. You know, got the car where it starts, runs, and drives really well. Got all the vacuum leaks fixed. I tried to fix the exhaust leak that's on it, but the manifold was cracked, and I welded the cast iron manifold as far as I could get to it. I tried to get it off, but the next step, and my 2 biggest things I don't like is squealing belts and exhaust leaks. But the next step on the car would be to pull the cylinder head, because I cannot get the bolts out, and the way it's angled, I can't get in there without getting the cylinder head off and laying it on a bench and trying to get the bolts out that way and remove the manifold. But the next thing is trying to find an exhaust manifold on it. Now, you could put a header on the car, which would be, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to do that or not. But the choices are somewhat limited of what you can do with that. Well, and you know that pulling the cylinder head off, well then, you know, since it's off, it might as well go to the machine shop, might as well do valve seals. And then the next thing would be pulling the engine out of it. And, you know, when that happens, it's not just changing the exhaust manifold. It's, you know, changing motor mounts, doing this, doing that. So I talked with the owners, and for the same amount of money you would spend labor and all that kind of stuff getting this 6-cylinder right, I would go ahead and V8 swap it. I would do a small block Ford, find the mounts and stuff for the V8 mounts for this, like the Grabber Maverick would have had,
and V8 swap it, it would cost pretty close to the same, and you would double the power, still get, because this right now I bet it would get 15, 16 miles to the gallon. A 302 would do the same thing, you know. So they're going to go ahead and come get it. I suggested just a front end alignment, a couple new tires, maybe do an oil change and send it, man. Just drive it. I mean, that's really what the car needs. I think it's been sitting for a little while, you know, just driven very, very, you know, once in a while, you know, and I just drive it. I mean, it's a wonderful little car, and the best thing, the next year on it, it would have had the crash bumpers on the rear. So really, you could convert this and take that front bumper off and put that 69, 70, 71, 72 front bumper on it, and you would have the early, you know, good. These are good looking cars. Like, look up like a Grabber Maverick. Those are the factory 302 Ford Mavericks, and they look pretty sporty. And really, this is nothing in the world but like the next generation, like the Ford Falcon, in my opinion. And I think it does share a lot of stuff with the early Ford Mustang. But yeah. If you could find one of these, I would definitely swoop it up, make a little hot rod out of it, because it's really a pretty cool little car. But until the next one, this little car is going to go home, and it's going to hopefully be enjoyed and driven. So thanks, guys, and we'll move on to the next one.